Guys, FanDuel is back, and they have a new promo for you guys. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before right now. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets if their first $5 bet wins. That is $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's going to eventually cut down the nets. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Bull, you mentioned the Myles Garrett extension yesterday. It broke. Earl, myself, hopped on YouTube immediately when the news broke. It is now one of our 3 biggest streams we've ever done. It was all the talk.
Wow.
And before we dive into the record-setting extension, here are the numbers. It is a 4-year extension worth $160 million. 123 of that is guaranteed. And he is now the highest-paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Before we dive into what changed, to make sure we're all on the same page, I found this soundbite from Myles Garrett's interview with Rich Eisen from Radio Row from the Super Bowl. Steve, let's play this little clip and let's talk about what changed.
I'm already hearing when you say you want out from Cleveland. Listen, he's got 2 years of unguaranteed money left on his contract. Browns, all they got to do is just make him the richest guy at the position in the game, and he'll go back and he'll be a Brown, and that's the end of that. How do you respond to that, where that this is something that can be bridged, fixed, and you can stay with the Cleveland Browns? How do you respond to that?
I said I don't care about the money. I just want to win the championship. Now, is it something that maybe they end up keeping me, or saying that they're not taking any offers? That's a possibility. But no, I just want people to know that it's not about me being the highest paid non-quarterback, or me having a huge contract or any of that.
He said it wasn't about the money. We know it's always about the money. The one thing, we're going to get, obviously the money is bigger than it's ever been. So we keep saying this guy makes the most money. Every new contract from a quarterback, a pass rusher, or a wide receiver is going to continue to break the record. So that's not that shocking. Myles Garrett not only broke the record for the most money per year from a non-quarterback, but also the most money guaranteed for a non-quarterback. And his money per year, frankly, it's probably more than half the quarterbacks, right, let alone non-quarterbacks. So the one thing I'll say, because when I first reacted, you guys did a podcast, I did one yesterday also. My first reaction, guys, was, of course, it was always about the money, right? He didn't really care about winning because he signed, and it was all about the money. However, the one thing I'll say, as I thought about this now almost 24 hours later, to defend Myles Garrett a little bit, because people are going to kill him, is that if it were always just about the money always, then why did he go through all this?
Facts.
If it was really about the money. Now, other teams would have paid him that money too, so maybe he assumed he would get. But I think what happened, in terms of Mike says, what changed? Well, nothing changed with the Browns. The Browns aren't any more likely to win now than Myles Garrett thought they were to win a week ago. What changed must be, the only thing that makes sense here, is that Myles Garrett came to the realization sometime in the last week that the Browns were steadfast in not trading him, that they were absolutely not going to trade him, and he said, what recourse do I have? There were people trying to con themselves into believing that Myles Garrett had leverage. He had no leverage in this situation. All he could have done is sit out. And how did that help him?
Well, he did have leverage if he truly meant he doesn't care about the money, and,
right,
he was going to sit out and get fined and didn't care and said, you know what, I'm just going to retire. I'm going to do
that was
he could have done that.
That was it. That was it.
And that would have been the ultimate. That would have been the ultimate. I really don't care about the money, because clearly you do care about the money.
But he wants to play, right?
Well, of course you want to play. You're a professional athlete. But to your point, nothing changed with the Browns. The Browns didn't all of a sudden become a better team overnight.
Not.
Nothing changed.
I think what changed for him was that he realized they were serious about not trading him. And then he said, I better make the best deal I can because I'm not going anywhere. And he was unwilling to sit out or retire.
So there's two things.
Yeah.
One is we don't know what they told him. Remember we went in and said what the plan was. He asked what the plan was. We don't know really what they told him. They could have told him, hey, we're going to run it back with Deshaun Watson. He could have told him, hey, we're going to get a young quarterback or not get a young quarterback. They had a plan. He said he didn't like that plan. We don't know exactly what that entailed. They come back. They talk about it a little more. He goes back. They didn't take the phone call. They bring him in, obviously, when they sign a contract. There was another meeting of, okay, well, what are you guys trying to do? We don't know if those two plans are the same or those two plans are different. There could have been something that they changed. Maybe he wants a certain quarterback. Maybe he wants a certain veteran quarterback. So obviously money always plays a part in it, like no matter what it is. Like I don't care what any of us say. We love our jobs as people. Let them drop a bag on any regular civilian and you'll change it up real quick.
That's not a fair comparison though.
Why ain't it?
Because whether he gets paid $30 million or $40 million is irrelevant in his life. Whether I get paid $100,000 or $40 million is a huge change in my life.
Like, how do you think about it? Like, think about this. Like,
Yeah.
But if you make considerably more money than the regular person,
yeah,
they would still feel the same way. Just because you make a lot more money does not mean that you don't care about money. It doesn't work in this country. That's what it's just like saying it's just like saying billionaires don't care about making more money. Of course they do.
Of course it's a factor in every decision.
Right.
What I can believe is what I said, that Myles Garrett came to the realization that they were not trading him. I don't buy at all that the Browns, and Jay's here now. Your thoughts, Jay? I don't buy at all that the Browns gave him a different game plan and that changed his mind. That I don't believe at all.
No, I don't believe it either. When we talked early on, I kept saying they don't have to trade him. He's got no leverage. They have the hammer, and he's the nail. And I think what happened was he realized that. I had said at the time, I think that his management, LeBron, the Paul management company had made a major miscalculation, and I stand by that. And I caught the tail end of your conversation about money. Your point is a very good one. I've always lived my life by, is it a lifestyle change? Is it a lifestyle change? This won't change Myles Garrett's lifestyle. He already has enough money to buy whatever he wants. So it doesn't change his lifestyle. But you made a point of, when the dollars are thrown at you and you realize that you're out of options.
Yeah, you take it.
You're out of options.
Yeah.
So he made lemonade out of lemons. And here's what I mean by that. He found himself in a corner. Oh, no, they may not trade me. And at the end of the day, it was good for him financially that the Browns dug in.
Yes.
And so when he saw an opportunity for an off-ramp to get back on a positive avenue, he took it instantly. As for, I guess we're going to talk about his ability to recruit free agents down the road.
Yeah, you haven't got there yet.
I'll tease ahead to that point. We're going to talk about that in our next topic. But I think, and look, I don't know. I haven't talked to Myles. I'm just judging it from the outside like we all are. The way I look at it is, it was always all about the money. Period. I think there was a piece of him that said, look, I'd really like to win. But when he realized that, just because you wish for a pony doesn't mean you're given a pony, he then made the best out of the situation. And he said, I'm going to stay here and take the money.
I don't believe just because he took the money that he does not care about winning.
It's not his first priority necessarily.
So say, for instance, if we all go work at a job, and I say, listen, I don't think this organization is run correctly. I don't like what we're doing, right? I got two options. I can not say anything and just sit right there and say, okay, we'll rock and roll with it. Or you can be vocal and say, look, we went 3-14 last year. It's unacceptable. And I don't know what you guys are doing up at the front office. I don't know what you guys are saying, but it's not okay to go 3-14. And so as a player, what recourse do you have? You can sit there and not say nothing or say something.
To defend Garrett, Myles Garrett, if it were only about every last dollar all the way along, then why would he have gone through this whole thing?
He could have just said,
they would have paid him this.
I don't think it's all or nothing. Both can be true.
Yeah.
Yes, this man wants to win. He's a winner.
Yeah.
Look at him. But he also wants to collect as many dead presidents as he can.
Of course.
And so history will judge this the following way, I believe. He'll be juxtaposed with Joe Thomas, who had a golden opportunity on a platter for him to leave Cleveland and go chase a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning in Denver, a Super Bowl they ultimately nailed. Joe said, no, I belong here.
Yep.
This organization drafted me. And that's what loyalty looks like. Ultimately, Myles Garrett,
It'll be looked upon differently.
it will be looked upon differently. And I don't necessarily think in a completely negative light. The man is the best at his position.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to win. He made that very clear. But there is something that takes a higher priority than winning. And that's a huge payday.
And loyalty's not owed. And there are some people that
You're right. It's not
And there
owed.
are some people that look down on Joe Thomas.
They do.
Saying he didn't care about winning.
No, you're
now,
right.
Joe didn't stay for the money. He just stayed because he wanted to be a Brown for the rest of his career.
He had a deal. And he honored said deal.
Yeah.
And I saw a little back and forth exchange between a sports writer and a fan where the sports writer was making the case Myles should leave. And the fan astutely pointed out, whatever happened to honoring your commitments? And that hasn't been talked about here. Now, we know that holdouts are a part of sports. They always have been. They probably always will be. But when you have a deal, when you have a piece of paper between yourself and an entity that pays you at an incredible level, and you put your name to that, that deal was fine 2 years ago.
Jay,
So we don't have escape clauses like that.
It works both.
Well, the teams do.
Hold on. It works both ways.
If the player agrees to it.
It works both ways. If you sign a contract and you don't live up to that contract, and you got 2-3 years left on it, they're going to come to you and say, you better take this little pay cut or we're going to move from you.
You're right. That's why that's always a part of it too.
Both ways. It goes on this side with the ownership and it goes on this side with the players.
You're right. However, it doesn't make it right that the teams do that either. I think that the NFL Players Union is and we can get into that separate discussion as to why it's so weak. There were allegations that it was weak because it was designed to be weak.
And they caved in every negotiation.
So there's been a lot of looking at the NFL Players Association president and saying, what are you doing, Gene Upshaw? You're giving away the farm here in these negotiations.
It's the game.
That's a separate issue. I don't want to go into that because that's a rabbit hole. But I do, and you're right. It is a two-way street. Teams are done with you. They're done with you. And
look, we cried last week. We're like, Nick Chubb.
Now,
are we getting him back? What about loyalty? He came back and played.
Yeah. Now, on that, I would say this. The players put their name to that deal with the Players Union. I've talked to players who insist the Players Union is a complete farce. They've been on the take forever, and they're selling out their members.
The question I
Compare the strength of the football union to the baseball union.
The question I got, Dustin, is should fans be upset at Myles Garrett, and how long will it last?
Well, it's interesting because I think by Myles Garrett signing this extension, he's not. If I'm a betting man, I'm going to bet in the next 4 or 5 years the Browns are not going to win a Super Bowl.
Pretty much.
So odds are his desire to win a championship is not going to happen.
Right.
Most likely.
But he's going to make a whole lot more money.
That's most likely for most teams because it's really hard to win a championship. Right. But the Browns are up against it. They've now paid him a gazillion dollars. Mm-hmm. He's now untradeable for the most part because he
has a no trade clause too.
Add that in.
How many
so you think he's untradeable because of the money?
I think the money is
going. But wouldn't any team that traded for him would have paid him that or close
I think he's tradable early in the contract.
Maybe
in 2 years he won't.
That's the point.
Maybe. Depends how good he is next 2 years.
Eventually, he's going to be in his 30s.
Yes.
And he's making this much money. Who's trading for that guy? I don't know. But when you compare it to the Joe Thomas situation, I think that it will be interesting to see how people remember it because this guy.
Do you think I'm far off in my characterization that Joe will always be looked at as the loyal soldier?
I think you're dead on. I think there's a chance that at the end of this whole thing, that people will look back at Myles and be a little bit. They won't look at him. Obviously, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. We know that.
Yeah.
But I think Joe Thomas will be looked upon more kindly.
To answer your question, and I think that's a great question, will fans be mad? How long will this last? No. Fans aren't paying him. Fans got what they wanted. Mm-hmm. Myles stays.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't. And by the way, as a fan, I don't hold any animus towards Myles Garrett.
None.
Good for you, brother.
Yeah.
Go get yours. I am all for these guys getting every dollar they can. Now, there is a piece of me as a fan where I look at that deal and say, wait a minute. You have the third highest paid quarterback in guaranteed money on your roster, and the non-quarterback, highest contract ever on your roster, you're not built to win. I will say that. Now, if fans do a deep dive and 3 years from now say, well, turns out keeping Myles Garrett was the roadblock that stood in our way from becoming successful over the next 5 years. Down the road, that could happen. But right now, I think as a fan, I'm glad that 95 is staying in an orange helmet.
Yeah.
And I'm happy about that. But if it proves out that what we think is true, how does this team win? How does this team win in 5 years? It's not happening.
This was the Jason Lloyd move right here. Listen, they understood. If you take the emotion out of it, the Browns knew that they're getting a new stadium, right? They got to sell some tickets in the meantime.
They still don't know that that's a given, by the way.
Well, I would assume
their hope is.
I would assume billionaires get their way. They seem to do that a lot in this country, usually. But here's the thing: they need to sell some tickets in the meantime. And Myles Garrett is the best defensive player. He's the face of your organization. They do have Deshaun Watson and all the the baggage that comes with him. They look like they might not sign Nick Chubb. We don't know if this signing has anything to do with it. But if you're Kevin Stefanski, do you want to deal with all of that on one front going into a year that counts? I got to find a quarterback. I got to get a veteran. Nick Chubb is out. People are pissed about that. Myles Garrett, who knows if he's going to hold out. And we got Deshaun Watson's contract. I'm glad it worked. I think it worked out for both sides. And I think it worked out where, look, hey, all it cost you was the free headlines during the offseason.
For all the drama, I do think this is overall a positive for the Browns. It's never bad to re-sign a great player.
No, I agree.
Even if it's financially punitive to the team acquiring more talent.
Yeah,
because I thought
financially. What do you mean? Say
financially punitive in that
like it's going to hurt them cap-wise down the line.
It's fewer dollars for other players.
Okay, yeah, possibly, but you got to pay your best players.
Yeah.
The Browns have shown that the salary cap, they don't care about it. They'll keep paying. They'll keep kicking money down the road. They've done it constantly. And ultimately, the only way the Browns have a chance of becoming a winner is by drafting a quarterback. Whether it's this year, next year, or the year after, their only chance of winning that Super Bowl in the next 5 years, which obviously we'd all agree seems like at the moment a huge long shot, is by drafting a quarterback. And so you won't be paying a quarterback a ton of money. You're going to get out of most of Deshaun Watson's money after the 26th season. And so I don't think the Browns are going to be in a situation the next 5 years where Myles Garrett's contract is the reason they're not winning. I think that's highly unlikely. Yeah. I think he's highly likely to be productive at a high level for a minimum of 2-3 more years, if not longer. We've seen great pass rushers be good into their 30s.
We've also seen them hit a wall in a hurry.
We have, but I would argue that if I had to bet one way or the other on Myles Garrett,
by the way,
I'd bet on him.
Yeah, I would too.
I mean, Khalil Mack is still producing. He just signed an $18 million one-year contract. He's 34.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, so, I would assume if anybody could be productive with their body and making sure that they can, stay at a peak level, it would be probably Myles Garrett.
And think about the way the cap has jumped the last bunch of years.
Yeah.
That's not going down anytime soon.
And it always goes up more than they anticipated. It did this year as well.
But even the last few years, even more than the more they anticipated.
Yeah.
Like, it has really shot up. So who knows where the hell it's going to be in 5 years. I don't see it going in the other direction. So maybe Myles Garrett's $40 million even 3 years from now. Because 3 years from now, Deshaun Watson's money is mostly off the book. Still a little bit in 3 years, but not much. And so his $40 million, I don't, how punitive is that going to be at that point? I don't know. The argument is like, could they have been better off trading him for draft picks?
Some people have been saying that.
Yes, and we'll never know what those draft picks would have turned out to be. Obviously, none of us are feeling great about Andrew Berry's ability to acquire talent via the draft.
Do you think what the Steelers